All right, so we've been working on a simple grazing system to get you out and managing your pastures so you can reduce your feed costs and give your animals a more healthy and nutritious food source that you're growing with the energy of the sun. And that is awesome. We're here to reduce overhead, feed our animals, and as a passive side benefit, we're sequestering carbon, building soils, building organic matter, doing conservation stuff, being environmentalists just by the nature of being a capitalist. We want to make more money doing what we do and what we love, which is managing livestock. And the benefits of that are far reaching. And so I've set up all the other videos where I walk you through a simple grazing plan, the map, the plan, the grazing chart, how to get started, how to map out that first move. And what we're going to do in today's video is nice and slowly go through. We're going to start, I live in Connecticut. We're going to take 4 cows and my 4 cow grazing plan that we covered in other videos. And we're going to do like 2.5 months worth of grazing. And it's that first rotation, I feel like it's easier to wrap your head around. When you have to move to the second rotation, more questions come up, and we're gonna field some of those questions. We're not going to answer all of them. Today's video is going to teach you about laying out the grazing chart, and then I'm going to go over this with Troy because this is an imaginary scenario. This is not. I've oversimplified it for the internet. I'm going to go over this with Troy. We have a workshop coming up where we're teaching this to people live, and I'll do a recording of that session as well. And to see where are you guys stumbling, what questions do you have, but this should get you started through most of your farm season, and you'll see how it can repeat. We're going to talk about that so that you can plan out a big chunk of your season ahead of time. But I would recommend not planning out the entire season, especially if you're just beginning, because plans change. You know, everybody's got a plan and then nature happens. We plan and then nature laughs. And so this is our best guess. We're getting in the ballpark. This is to get you better than either never moving your animals and keeping them in one spot so the manure builds up, your parasite load can build up, they're not as healthy, it beats up the ground. We're getting past stagnant animals and stuck in one place and getting into the grazing systems that manage for healthy soils and healthy animals, because that's our end goal. Save some money, save some planet, it's all gravy. Let's get into it. Enough talking, John. So our grazing plan, backing up 2 seconds, I carry these notebooks. I love a good 1/2 inch, 1 inch, 3-ring binder. You can print stuff out. They're sturdy. You can write on them. You can leave them out in the field as your clipboard, but they then close up. You can save them year to year if you want to. You can scan the documents and digitize them year to year. I love a physical clipboard or a notebook to keep the stuff in. I like the notebooks a little bit more than the clipboards, but clipboards are great when you're working with more people because that information is front and center. Nothing gets closed behind a door. So on our locked door, I typically put my grazing map, my farm map, on the cover, because then when I'm working with people, I can say, hey, the animals are going here today, they're going here on this month, we're rotating around, this field needs to get mowed today, and it's a very quick visual reference for you to be working with somebody else, having that map right out there in front. Something fell while I was talking. I have no idea what it was. So then as we open up, I have my, this is again, just an example, but I've got my grazing plan right in the front, just 2 pages, and then it gets into my grazing chart. So in order to work with this stuff, you can store it in the notebook. I like to spread it out on a tabletop, kitchen table, kitchen counter, find a place to spread out. So we're going to take it out. I have backup grazing plans in there. We're going to get rid of the folder for now. And in previous videos, we filled out the grazing plan that has 4 cows. We did it for a 30-day rest period, but I also then did the math for a 45-day and a 60-day rest period, because as you go throughout the summer, once you pass that summer solstice, there's less sunlight and the grass takes more time to recover after that initial impact. And so you want to give it more rest days, and that's what we're going to cover today's video is 2 rotations, one 30-day and one 45-day. So for the beginning of this, I print out for every month that I want, and then I will chop off the end. You know, I put my 3 rings holes in, and then I'll chop off the end. Let me see if I have one that is not chopped. So I'll start with this, and it's got a boundary in the printable area. To make it easy for me to overlay, I will chop off the end. I tried folding them over, but that just makes it bulky, and that way I can line the months up together and make a continuous line. This is all easier if you have it on one sheet of paper, which is very nice, but you can print these at home and manage it that way without having to incur any other expenses than at home printing. So this is where we're starting. All right, enough about how I set up my notebook, and then I just have my grazing charts throughout the year. I cut the ends off, and then you can lay everything out on a counter. So what I did just a few minutes ago was lay out this exact section where I'm taking our imaginary 4 cows on a farm property that I've managed for years and years and years. And we're going to look at what is that first rotation, and then when we go to the second rotation, what are those things that we keep in mind? What are those questions that come up? How do you answer that and manage it? So starting at the beginning, I started this in the beginning of May. I'm in the Northeast United States, and if you go out too early in the year, you end up part of the landscape where the mud is just up to the hubs of the wheels, and you're stuck in this field. To get out of here, I had to detach the trailer and get myself out of the hole, wrap a chain around the trailer once I got to high ground, and then pull it out of the field and go back and fix those ruts later. Not awesome. Not awesome. So can't start too early. It gets really soggy and wet. Troy would say, go out and test the ground, get in there, get active, and let the land tell you when it's ready. So let's lay out our 4 cows according to our grazing plan. We're going to take our map out of here so I don't have to deal with the glare. We're going to have our grazing plan, and if you're at the kitchen table, have all this stuff out in front of you so that, let me stare at my dog. Did he have all this stuff out in front of you so that you can reference it? Helps to work with somebody else so that you can get all on the same page. Data, maps, equations, learn to live in that world. Get very comfortable. I know you can do it, because once you're able to quantify, measure the things that you're doing, it's not so much that it gets easier every year, but you get better at it. And there's a way to have that conversation with the professionals across the board, NRCS, other grazing people in the apple community, because now you've quantified it and you have numbers. You're not just like, well, when the grass kind of looks like this, I kind of move the cows. This is exactly what happened. So let's lay this out. We did the grazing plan for our cows. We need a ½ acre paddock every 3 days for the residency period of 3 days. We're going to move them twice a week. For that, we need 10 paddocks, number 11, because you kind of need that sacrifice transition paddock, and just depending on how your math works out. And then for 45 and 60 days, we're going to need 16 paddocks and 21 paddocks. What does that look like? I've said ½ acres. How much does a cow eat? How many paddocks? So let's lay that out on days of the week and using our map. So we know that this area number 1, sorry for the yellow text here, but is 2.5 acres. So at a ½ acre a day, and a ½ acre for a residency period of 3 days for 4 cows, I can get 5 residency periods, 5 moves in those 2.5 acres. I need a ½ acre for 3 days for 4 cows. And I know from being in the Northeast, if I go out too early, I'm going to end up in the mud and get stuck in the field. So I can't go out any earlier than the beginning of May. Instead of picking an exact date in May, I just made it May 1st for the example here. So we take our grazing chart, and I'm in paddock number 1. Let me stand up for this. I'm in number 1, or field number 1. And then there's different paddocks within that field, because in field number 1, there are 2.5 acres. I need a ½ acre every 3 days. So I'll move on day 1, give them 2 days to hang out and chew. Move on day 4, give them 2 days to hang out and chew. move on 7, move on 10, move on 13. These 15 days is 5 different moves with 3 days in each move. That's moving my animals roughly twice a week. Then I'm out of space in field number 1 because it's only 2.5 acres. So I'm going to go up to 3. You know, my field farm's laid out in a long rectangle. So I'm going to go up to 3 here because I got a nice hillside. It's only 1 acre. So on that 1 acre, at half an acre per 3 days, I move, hang out for 2 days, move, hang out for 2 days. Now I'm up to 3 weeks. I've got 3 weeks planned out. All I've needed was 2 paddocks for my 4 cows. Over 3 weeks, I feel like I can manage that much property. You know, that's 3.5 acres. Now I'm out of space, so I move on to, I started here, moved up half an acre at a time, half an acre at a time, half an acre, half an acre. Now I'm in a field 4, which is a 2 acre field. That means I can get 2 divided by that half acre, 2 acres divided by a half acre is 4 moves in field 4, which is just delightful. So I'm in field 4. I got 2 acres. I can move, hang out, move, hang out, move, hang out, move, hang out. And there is my 30 days rest. So if let me change my camera view here so I don't have to, oh yeah. So now I started in the beginning of this field right here. And I moved my cows, imaginary cows, slowly up the field, slowly up the field, slowly up the field, following that half acres for 3 days. And now that I've got up here, that grass that I started on down here, it's been 30 days since a cow has munched on that grass. That grass has had time to go through its growth cycle again and create more solar panel that my cows will find munchy and delicious. So I want to go from up here, and it's been a month since from here to here, but I've moved them every 3 days. And I want to take them down my road on the east here and drive them back to the beginning. Now you don't have to do that. You could have set up these fields that it's nice when you can get a nice round rotation and not have to do a big move. But instead of going through the complexities of that, I'm using an actual piece of property with some of my actual restrictions that take it for what it is. So we're going to start in the end, move here, and then come back to the beginning. What that looks like on the chart is that we were in field number 1, 2.5 acres. We moved through. We went through our other fields with our every 3 day rotation, and now we're back up here because it's been roughly 30 days, 33 days, I guess, by this, but I wasn't going to leave that last little bit in that field hanging. That's why nothing goes exactly according to plan. Nothing's perfect, and that's okay. Now I started back here again, but for this rotation, I'm going to want 45 days of rest before I get back here again. I want to start to plan that ahead of time. And in order to plan for more days, you need more areas. This is something that took me a long time to have it sink in. But those 11 paddocks that we had with 30 days of rest, that doesn't mean you only ever need 11 paddocks. Because if we do the math again, let's pull that up. 30 days of rest with a residency period of 3 days, 30 divided by 3 is 10, plus 1 is 11. 45 days of rest divided by 3 is 15, plus 1 is 16 paddocks. In 16 paddocks, because you want to go further out, spend more time away from your first field so that you're giving your first field more time to rest. 45 days versus 30 days means you need to go further out in the farm. What does that look like? Oh my goodness. So then, May is gone. We're into June. And in June, we've restarted our rotation. Now we're in field number 1. Don't worry about this guy yet. He's coming up soon. We're in field number 1. We do our regular 3 days, and we're rotating through, and it mimics just like our first rotation. Let me pull up our first rotation. Look at that. Almost exactly the same. Almost exactly the same. Except for we're adding right here some more days so that we can have more paddocks, so it's a longer period of time before we reached here. Now, by the time this has happened, this paddock has had 45 days to rest and has had more time to recover and let the grass grow, so you've got more feed. Now we've done some simple math and calculations to give that land some time to rest. We're focused on rest here with our grazing. Instead of action, it's about waiting, observing, taking a moment, letting things recover. Very important for the farmer, for the animals, for the grass, for the soil. So now more time has passed before we go to that beginning. And if we go here and we want to give it 60 days, well, what does that look like? 60 days gets us through the end of the fall. We've now mapped out an entire grazing rotation for our 4 cows using a couple of acres with twice a week moves, which is fairly manageable if you're farming on a part-time schedule, and you've produced more grass. Your animals are healthier. They get off their manure a lot sooner. If you're short on grass, you can feed hay. If you have an abundance of grass, you can move faster and change up your schedule. Do some mowing if you need. Mowing, that's the point I wanted to hit before we wrapped up here. Now, these, I want to move the animals to this field, which is field number 6, right? Number 6 here. And now they've gone up to 4, they've come back down to 1, and they've gone up to 4 again, and they're going to rotate into 6, and then I'll either shoot them over here or bring them back down the field or the road. It doesn't matter. They have to get to field 6. Now, if I've never touched field 6 this entire time, it has that 30 days plus another 30 days of rest. So it's got 60 days of rest that it's never been touched the entire year. And if you've ever done that to your fields before, you notice that they're this high and they're hard to navigate. When the grass is super high, it goes from producing protein to producing fiber because the stalks are getting resilient against the wind. And it's less about the solar panel and more about putting that energy into the roots, getting tall and out-competing their competition, putting up seeds, spreading those seeds through wildlife or the wind, or just having them drop on the ground and then create more grass. We don't want the grass to get super tall. We want it to be manageable for our animals. So as we think, and this is the amazing thing about laying this out on a chart, we know we want to get here to this grass, and we want this grass to have had roughly 30 days of rest. We're in the middle of June right now, and we figure 30 days rest-ish is going to be great for that field. So on this day, on the 6th of June, I now have a task. I'm going to go and mow just that field that I'm going to be in the future. And so that way, when I mow it down, I can leave those clippings right on top, and that will act as fertilizer, as if the cows chewed it and spat it out, or spat it out through other ends. It acts as a fertilizer when you drop it right on top, and that grass will have time to recover. So when your animals come back around, they're not coming into a sward that's just gigantic and tall and more fiber based, but they're coming into something that has had a measured recovery period, so it's more optimal feed for them, so you're getting more value by getting more of that food that the animals can consume and turn into delicious hamburgers and stuff. Whoa. So having that laid out, we've got 2.5 months, real simple, knowing exactly where our animals are going to be, where we need to manage the grass, how we need to interseed and mow so that there's good grass for when the animals finally get to that spot. And we know that not only do we need to have a rotation with a few paddocks, but we need to have some open land for additional paddocks to allow for more rest time. And the more dialed in you get on your farm, your average paddock size, how big of a herd you want, you'll be able to figure out what your carry capacity is for how much forage you can grow on your property and how much hay or supplemental feed you need to bring in because you're not able to move the animals as much, or your land is not as productive, or all the million other variables that will happen when you try to manage livestock or any kind of agricultural operation. There are just so many details, and it becomes so personalized so quickly. There are great great resources out there besides me, but I'm hoping that Troy and I can get you started grazing so you can refine what questions you have and then take them to those experts, find those communities that will help you manage the property better, earn more money, and keep you on the land and successful longer.